time a synchronized swimmer shakes water out of her ear, a fairy drops down.
Every time you put surgical instruments inside an autoclave, a fairy's complexion improves.
Every time you get a paper cut, a fairy gets a house.
Every time you bite your nails, a fairy counts to 11.
Every time a fairy laughs, a baby shatters.
Every time you pick up a green branch and turn it over, fairies form a committee.
Every time a brick gets laid, a fairy wears a corset. Every time a refrigerator magnet moves, a fairy takes the bus. Every time two people make love, a fairy gets slapped.
Every time a dragonfly turns left, a fairy gets lost. Every time one thing, another thing, by obscure accidents in another realm is each society made.
Every time a door slams, a fairy backs her forklift.
Every time a stone skips, a fairy winks romantically and inappropriately.
Every time a bubble on bubble wrap pops, a fairy gets a new pair of shoes.
For every second of difference between all clocks and the correct time, a fairy gets a nickname. There are spaces for event, for determination everywhere. The world is super saturated with cause. Too much meaning!
Every time a cliff is made by river or by continental shift, a fairy sneezes.
Every time a jet flies over a 2-bedroom house, a fairy gets to the bottom of a jelly jar. Every time a bald man tells a joke, a fairy breaks a shoelace.
Every time a golf ball drops into a cup, a fairy cheats on an eye exam. Every time you repeat yourself, a fairy roller skater does a loop.
Every time you pull off a band-aid, a fairy's window blind snap up.
Every time the world passes away, a fairy touches her right shoulder with her right hand.
Every time the Lord's name is used in vain, a fairy gets her mail returned.
Every time the Lord's name is in vain, the fairies take over.
And every time I love your love, that love is universal.
One day, 1,000 babies looked and nearly laughed. That's how fairies are made. Their first words were nearly a chorus of unified fairy. These babies nearly laughed and said fairy, but the mothers would not have it. Mothers saw the fricative taking shape and pinched their strings to tears. For faith in fairies had lost its vogue. The babes wailed instead. They were the last to see, the very last to make and see us.
Fairies dropped like maple seeds.
I don't want a kiss.
I do. Give me a kiss. This one.
This is a kiss. Peter hands her his button, his carved wooden acorn button. With this kiss, she fastens him. She buttons him into the first hole and binds him word at a time to her nightdress.
Now a thimble. Give me a thimble.
What's a thimble?
This.
I'll give you a button. Acorn button. John and I watched the thimble and button. go with him.